see the time. Okay, let's go back to this. Oh, I think we're already on.
Oh,
Yeah, I think we're on. Hello.
hello.
It's Friday, and
Sorry.
as usual, we got some kind of technicals. Thanks for giving us a thumbs up, and it's We Gather.
And we're starting it in our style, which is authentic. We haven't got our tech stuff.
I was telling Alex the other day, Alex Michael, the conspiracy music guy, I was telling him that, sometimes we'll do the We Gather, and Luke will set the start up and get the music going, and I'll still be on the trampoline or doing something with ZZ. So,
It's our style. It's super cool. We're not pretending to be polished and can we get better at it for sure.
If you're new, welcome. We've had a few new subscribers since the Guru Gathering, which is nice. I think that's really where the majority of new subscribers would have come from. So, wow, we're just kind of catching our breath, really, because we're just yesterday drove away from Javier, where we'd spent, 3 weeks, maybe longer.
I think it was almost a month. Oh, no, because we'd gone and done something else.
So
and
about 3 weeks. Full on, involved with
it was like 3
the
months.
party.
It was so full.
Yeah, wow. It was amazing, and we got the opportunity to be with so many different people over that time. But we also spent, a lot of our time, hosting. So it's nice for us to now just be back to the four of us. We're on the road. We're near Girona, which is 500 kilometers north of Javier.
We call it French-Spanish because it feels like you're...
Almost Italian even as well.
Yeah, but you're definitely 1 foot in out of Spain for sure, because there seems to be this fusion going on here.
The border's only like 20, 30 miles away from here, France.
But it's good to be here because we got a chance to kind of just slow everything down, which is actually really on point in terms of seasons, because we've had the summer where, we're all expansive and busy and whatever, and now it feels like, we're in that season of, digesting what we have experienced in the fullness and letting go what's not necessary.
And we have had quite a lot of experience, and it's amazing because, the world changed in 2020, no doubt. And so a lot of the things that perhaps we used to take for granted became less common. And then in the truth community, you alienate so many of your usual avenues of socializing and so on. It doesn't feel, for a lot of people, not everyone, doesn't feel right. But this coming together, I think it was, there are others, so I don't want to overblow it, but it was an amazing opportunity to see people connecting, and so many connections have been made that are already starting to bear fruit.
We did do it of a very powerful, energetic weekend. So I think the
You mean with the eclipse? And
with the eclipse.
This equinox?
Well, it was eclipse and a new moon. So all the energy that it was available, I think it felt that much more powerful for people.
Yeah. Alex is keen to do the next one at the eclipse.
No.
I mean, not the eclipse, the equinox.
Yes, because the eclipse next year, around about this time, I think is in August. It's not in September.
Right. Yeah, so we'll see.
So yeah, we'll see how that. Yeah, that's right, because actually the nodes move to Aquarius Leo, so it'll be in the sort of Leo time.
Okay.
For the next one.
Ooh, there'll be some roaring.
So on that note of energy, how is everyone doing? We have had some fairly intense energy this week. There was a big square between Pluto in Aquarius and Mercury moving into Scorpio. And of course, Scorpio wants us to go to the depths. It wants us to go to that shadowy stuff. And it's Mercury, so it's communication, it's thoughts, it's all those kind of things, depending on where it is, of course, in your chart. And then Pluto is what's hidden, death and rebirth. So I wondered how that in a square is always quite, it's tension. It feels really uncomfortable. It's not a necessarily comfortable feeling, but all for the purpose of seeing what's hidden, and especially the Scorpio Pluto bit, what's that in those shadows that we need to see.
You mean that things are going to be presented that give us opportunity to see these things?
Totally. I mean, that's what life is, really. As far as I'm concerned, that's what life is. Life is our mirror. And, if we're prepared to, I was just having a little chat with Luke, actually, saying, so much of the time we struggle to see those inner lies or those inner shadows, or, we're projected onto the world that it's there, over there, it's that person, it's that thing, it's that. And it's not bad. It's a way of surviving. If I can put it over there, then I don't have to face this thing that I'm not wanting to look at, because it's incredibly uncomfortable. But I think we're being invited, and it's all the time. And this the Scorpion energy, which we're going to move into Scorpio Sun around the 20th of the month anyway, is always that time of the year where it's like that deeply reflective time. But just to add to it, Mercury is going to go into retrograde. I have a sense it's like also around about the same time the Sun moves into sort of end of October for 3 weeks. Mercury is going to retrograde in Scorpio. So again, it's that inward pull of like, what are my thoughts? What are my, around thoughts, communication, in terms of that sort of Scorpion energy. That's, Scorpio is the psychologist of the chart. It's like our inner psyche. It's our our deep psychology. And it's watery too, so it's emotional. But it's deeply intuitive, and so it's very powerful.
Very powerful. I tell you what's very powerful is the curry place that we went to in Havia called Kathmandu. I only mention that because Alex is in the chat and he's just been for a cheeky curry with Outlaws tonight. So a little envious about that. Actually, I've got to tell you, Alex, we've lit a fire tonight. I could turn the camera and see. You see, there's a little fire. There's a fireplace here. Very nice. But the air is certainly a few degrees cooler. The pool is cooler.
Zizi tried to
get me into the pool. Oh my lord!
Force.
Up to the nips, and oh man, I couldn't really do it today.
He was in agony, whereas Zizi's just,
it's just
it's cold, but he's got no problem, and that's just, that's just how we are as children, right? We're so, it's more important to have fun and be in that kind of spirit than to be all.
I'll tell you who I hope is having fun is Jason Disbury. Jason Disbury's in the house, and it's lovely to see you, brother. I can't hand out wrenches from this. I can only watch the chat from our backup account, the Trinities. So I can't do things like that. You are still subscribed here. Hi, Glyph. Much love to you, bro. We do have to talk tech, dude. Fingers need to be pulled out of rectums because there is work to be done. The rusty sheriff's badge should be polished. And Martin Lika, you really got to think about that, my friend. You really got to think about that. We had a great conversation with Martin Lika about, cleaning the temple, because the whole temple, you can't just, all I do is I brush my teeth. Well, what about, the pipe work, Do you ever think you need to go and clean the pipe work? Truthfully, the sewage system needs flushing every now and again, and I cannot highly recommend enough the organic green coffee Anima.
Are you he's very cleverly so if you saw the beginning and we didn't realize we were live, I was saying let's not use any trigger words. So I suppose you were trying to not say certain words as trigger words. So well done for not using the actual words.
Our friend JT is here as well. Greetings from the Texas land. We've been spending a little bit of time with Cheryl, who's with Martin, Martin Lika. And she's from Texas land, actually. And she's absolutely loving it in Spain land. Really loving it there. So, just pass that by you, my friend. I hope you're all well. And I see F, the big Francois Lachranci, is in the house. Much love, brother. Nice to see you, and I hope the family is well and all the babies are well. Who needs friends when you have enemas? Classic. Nice to see you, Jasper. And from my perspective, I do appreciate the musical contribution you made to the Guru Gathering. I think yours and also the guys with the drumming, man. They were. It just really added something,
The percussionists.
The percussion, yeah.
Nigel and John.
Yeah. So I'm hoping the Guru is going to seek more of that for the musical ensemble next time around. And he had mentioned that you might be able to make yourself available for the next time around. So I look forward to that. Jason, I hope your trip to Wales was good. I know there was a meetup, a Flat Earth meetup in Wales on Tuesday, as there always is. What's it, the first Tuesday every month? And then, as I said to Ian Leahy down at the Bournemouth one, we hope to see them on the last Tuesday of this month in England, in Bournemouth. So if you are at all in the vicinity of that, then please pop down. There's lots going on. There's lots going on in the world, and it aligns with the astrology. Andrea talks about how it's interesting how the ceasefire that's happening in a place somewhere in the world. You can't really say these things, Baza, can you? Because Baza isn't allowed to be spoken about anymore, because business don't want you talking about that. Or someone, what they say is like, if you want to know who's got their thumb on attack, you got to just look to who you can't really criticize. And I think in the right context, certain amounts of criticism are like welcomed, because it affords some people the opportunity to say, oh, look how terrible these people are. Let's come in with some more, legislation and control things more. So it's kind of like the Hegelian dialectic of creating the problem and reaction, controlling that reaction, and then boom, here's a great idea. But the thing is, right, because recently, obviously, all of that stuff in the Outer Hebrides, Middle Easteries, is actually, and the other stuff that's going on with the analog IDs. Did I say that right? Analog ID? I think is it analog? Anyway, you know what I mean. If it's not analog, it's something else. It's the other thing. If it's not analog, it's what is it? Anyway, you know what I mean. It's that thing is causing a lot of people a great deal of disconcert, and it's quite, for me, like, I think we were talking to Alex about this. It's more like it's kind of like this is meant to be happening, or this was what we expected to happen, and it's going to be okay. Whatever transpires.
We were talking to my sister about it, weren't we? Because obviously my sister's back in the UK, and interestingly enough, she's not getting it from mainstream. She's getting the fear from the truth community.
Yeah.
Which
we know about fear.
is interesting, because I think that this particular topic puts the fear in people who have the wound of having been controlled and betrayed, and so now that this thing is appearing, it's creating all that panic and fear, And, you know, so it doesn't matter what side of the pendulum you're on, you know, you've got to be able to go, wow, what's actually going on for me here? That this thing that is happening in the world is mirroring back to me.
Yeah, so something that I sensed from the Flat Earth, the Guru gathering, was that I encountered people who were perhaps, you know, like old hands in a particular field of research, but not necessarily like, you know, like the grand scale of things through the keyhole of flat Earth and so on, the cosmology. And it reminds me of this lady I met in Speaker's Corner in the early days. She was a chemtrail activist. 20 years she'd been in it. And I met her in Winchester some time ago doing activism myself. She wasn't. She was like, I don't do it anymore. But for her, like the grander scope of things was never possible. So in her wheelhouse, she was strong. But outside of that, she wasn't so strong. And I think, you know, what we're going to see with the analog ID thing is that there's going to be this huge pushback and a lot of people kind of squeezing through the sieve, as it were. And when they come through that sieve, where do they land? And I think maybe, you know, that's a responsibility or like a place for those who have walked through some of this to help to support others coming through that, so that they have, you know, a shorter journey or a less fearful or a, you know, a way of seeing this in a way that isn't like my sister-in-law, like Robin, you know, where for her kind of new into this, she was damaged by the needlecraft, you know, she was doing the knitting and something hit her in the arm. And
I think your innuendos are going a little bit far. Doing knitting, and it's something hit her in the arm.
I've referred to it as needlecraft for years, darling. You know, I already had a channel taken down for too much talk about crochet.
I think that often we get lost in all the outside, which is kind of what I was saying earlier. We're getting like lost in the outside narrative, the story, and a narrative is only a possibility. Certainly at this point in time, it's a possibility, and what that possibility even means in the future is still all possibility. And depending on us, the creators, that then take that narrative or our imagination and then turn it into something that becomes a tangible physical thing. And this is
creative.
Yes, exactly. And this is where healing work is so important, or us unlearning, or us bringing consciousness to our wounds or to our programming or to our belief systems. Because what the mind will do is it will use the past or its experiences or its meaning of something, and then it will create a narrative around, it'll create a story around that. Yeah. And so this particular topic that we're talking about, you know, them implementing that is, you know, what is that familiar feeling? It's a familiar feeling of perhaps control, a familiar feeling of, or perhaps being out of control, or perhaps being betrayed. And can I use that outside narrative as an opportunity to be reflective on, like, what is actually coming up for me?
Yeah.
You know, what is the feeling that's coming up for me? Because for me, freedom is within.
Yeah.
And
You're
if
much
I
better
don't
at that.
feel I don't feel free within, then I ain't going to get that from the outside. There's nothing I could do to change or fix the outside that's going to make me feel free.
That may well be the key for all of it. And us guys, left brain in the community, in the truth community, are so enthralled by the drama out there that we cannot say that this is, Well, I'm just
or enthralled, or
or
that we, because logic means I need to figure
attracted.
it out. No, I need to have the facts. I need to
We
figure
want
it
that.
out.
We want that.
But you see, the right side, or the imagination, or our creativity, or our connection to something ethereal, or
What about feminine?
or spiritual, or yes, for us, our
more
connection
like-
to that isn't tangible.
I mean,
It
I'm
isn't-
one of the
isn't
most masculine
concrete.
guys you'll meet.
It isn't concrete. It isn't certain. It's in fact, when we allow ourselves to be in the uncertain,
Yeah.
then that allows every possibility beyond our imagination to be possible. When we start to say, this is exactly how it's going to turn out, no matter what your narrative is, it's going to turn out like this, it's going to turn out like that, then we're already predetermining, or we already have created our own belief system around that thing. And then you're not allowing all the millions of other possibilities to come to pass.
Does it make a difference between whether it's like an optimistic outlook or a pessimistic outlook? Because I feel like if I have an optimistic outlook, no matter what the story is going to happen out there, versus a pessimistic, no matter what the story is, none of us know what the story is, and it'll unfold in the way that it's going to unfold. I don't necessarily want to put too much energy into that unfolding. But if I have a positive outlook, then what's going to come back at me will be more likely positive reactions or interactions with it, right? If I'm negative, then I can see myself butting heads with the authorities and standing in the street, getting, cuffs and all that sort of hoo-ha and so on. And
actually,
that's all I'm just asking.
Negative and positive, negative outlook or positive outlook. Firstly, you can't just change your mind. That belief system, negative and positive, is actually living in your field, which I point to my body, but the field is this energetic field that I am emanating, and it's an old belief system, negative or positive, because we have these belief systems that things don't work out for us, that we're not worthy of things working out for us, that we're not good enough for things to work out for us. And it's deep and unconscious belief system that things don't work out for us, or things are hard, or I'm going to get let down, or it never works out for me, or whatever it is. But, we can tell cognitively, we can go, oh yeah, I can be positive about the thing, but this is a body, mind, energetic belief system. So, there's one thing saying, I can be really positive about it, but it has to be an energetic shift, because you're electromagnetic, so you can't fake it.
No, I agree.
I mean, you can always choose to flip it, but so it's that pattern breaker, right? You can pattern break, and sometimes I'll say it's like we have to practice pattern breaking. So I'll use the nervous system. I go into collapse. Collapse is a very common nervous system thing for me, is when it's that freeze. So when something happens, I have learned, because I couldn't fight or flight, freeze. I would go into freeze. And I know what it feels like in my body. So I can sense the collapse, and then I can choose to help my body, or certainly be with the collapse and say, okay, I can see I'm in collapse. Now I'm going to choose to not just fall into it,
or medicate it,
or use the screen to distract myself from it. I'm going to choose to give my body what it needs to help me out of it. And of course, there's somatic things I can do to help it. But even just having consciousness and compassion for that state, that's the pattern break. But it takes practice, because if you aren't even aware you do it, or if you are aware, but it's hard to just decide you're going to do it. Some people can, but I think it's so familiar for us to be in that unconscious belief system, and therefore nervous system, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, that I think it's teaching ourselves the capacity. And that's where body work is amazing, like breath work and dance and stretching and anything where you can allow the body to start to move that old way of being. So I think it's one thing to say, I'll just be positive about it, but I think it's a much more energetic experience that we're having to heal and bring to completion. You know, if we have this field, then all the experiences that not only we've had, but that we carry familiarly, whether it be our feminine line, whether that be our, generationally, or if that even be collectively, is all in the field. And we're having to be with all of that. And so that's why I always say, don't force fear away. Rather just say, oh, there's fear there, let me feel it. It's only a feeling. Or I feel angry right now, and can I allow myself to move through that anger? Do I need to go for a walk? Do I need to chop some wood? Do I need to dance? Do I need to shout? I mean, how many of us have blocked throat chakras? Me, I've realized in the last 3 weeks, what came up for me is how difficult I still find it to use my voice, to express myself, to be in my truth, because my learned behavior is I need everyone to be pleased. I cannot be disappointing. And so I end up self-abandoning to make sure that the outside's still happy with me. And that's still something that now I have awareness with. And each time it comes up, can I be with the feeling? Can I be with the belief system? Can I be with the nervous system response? And then can I choose differently and still be with how it feels in my body? So it's big, and we're all doing that. But we have to be mindful that we don't give our power to the narrative, rather use the narrative to go, okay, what's going, and then once we've been with that, then we can respond. Do I need to put a boundary up? Do I need to make a decision that's joyful, that's right for me, that feels like a yes rather than a no? Do I have to do something really uncomfortable? Is there an uncomfortable thing I have to do? Like make a decision about putting a boundary up, or having an uncomfortable conversation, or stepping into a feeling that feels dreadfully uncomfortable. And we're all walking through this together.
Yeah. And I think we're all needing to take steps in that breaking pattern towards, like the letting go of the old and emerging something more complete emerging from that.
In the most compassionate way, right? Because none of us chose this. There's that phrase, it's not my fault, but now it's my responsibility. And to be compassionate with all the ways that you've learned to survive, or that maybe your family line learned to survive, and have tenderness and compassion for that, but like a real sense of radical responsibility on it's only me, that can do that work, and it's hard. I'm not saying that it's taking a step into that work is easy, but I think we've spoken a lot over the last few weeks, and it's a very big topic around AI and how AI is going to become bigger and bigger, and how social media is going to become, it's going to be really hard to be able to tell the difference. And so authenticity and our real rawness and our truth and emanating that is going to become so valuable. Probably the most valuable thing that we'll own is our authentic voice, our truth, our deep heart-aligned medicine or expression, or what we want to offer the world, or how we want to be seen, is going to be so important.
That has to be almost like the gold standard, because what is coming, the system is looking to demean or diminish that, right? I was having this interesting conversation with France, the guitarist that played with Alex, and he was saying his conception is that um, there's no free will, that everything is a script and everything is playing out exactly as intended. And I've had opportunity to think about that over the days since we've had that conversation, and I feel like some of that is correct in that what's happening kind of like in the world affairs is like a scripted thing. It's almost like the Bible was written almost to kind of tell the story, or other things have been put in place over millennia perhaps to shape the story, and it must play out. There have perhaps been one or two neos or whatever over time, but I think it must play out, and I would agree there in that case that this is a script. That what's happening at Disneyland is, these rides are going to go around on a pre-described 6,000 year circuit or 20,000 year circuit, whatever. However, where I disagree is that the individual player can decide, can create a story that is that offers sliding doors, that mean that when sliding doors open, you are willing to, or able to, or courageous enough to take the step through that door and take a different path, because there are, I believe, myriad stories or ways that your existence can occur. Now, I can't say with absolute certainty that no matter which path I choose, the outcome in my life is always going to be the same. I'm not sure about that. There have been in our lifetime so many sliding door moments where, even in the time before I met you, and then when I met you, and then all these things. Alex taking the decision to take me up on the idea of having a party or a festival or a gathering. These decisions didn't have to, they didn't have to go that way. They didn't have to be. A different thing could have occurred. So I feel like there is a super narrative, the background, the kind of simulation, or the construct, and then there is your own navigation of the construct, and that is a journey that you can be very much master of, and mastery of the self is optional. Do as thou wilt, as they say in some.
It's optional, but I think that's where suffering comes in, right? When we are in resistance. See, this is where astrology for me comes into this conversation, because if I look at everyone's chart, we've all come here with our own mission. I always say we've come with our own unique mission, yet we're all playing into the same mission.
I'm saying that we really don't have to take the mission.
No, but I know for myself, if I just look at my chart, if I just look at my first Saturn return, right? I had no idea. I was not conscious during that time at all. This is when Dave and I were separating. And it was so hard. It was so hard because I was in resistance of what was trying to teach me. And so I think that we've all come with our own set of agreed, I believe, our set of agreed tests and lessons for us to expand in our consciousness, for us to ultimately return to love. That is my perspective on it, is that we come here, we are put through these experiences. Perhaps that's when we come and we have these traumatic experiences that then create ego, and then we have to find our way out of it, back to love. And if we don't, then we return to love, and then perhaps we do it again. That's a possibility. Do I think that there is way more available to all of us than we can even begin to imagine? Yes. And so I don't think there's a limitation on that. I think our fullest potential is way more more than our minds, which is probably why once upon a time there were giants, because there was that ability to be so, we're at like golden age energetic level. And of course, over time we've become so suppressed and so in such survival that we're, our energetic capacity has become smaller and smaller and smaller. And I truly believe that that's why we're practicing becoming more open and more open. And it's actually when we're open, it feels quite vulnerable. So we're practicing being vulnerable. We practice being not in the not knowing. We're practicing being in possibility. We're practicing holding more energy. And that's the expansion that we're all is available to all of us. So I like to think of it as we've got like a dot-to-dot picture, and we can make it as beautiful and vibrant and just wonderful as we want, or it can be like just this sort of really plain dark picture that but we've all come with a mission. And I think free will is that we can either struggle through the journey and suffer and be in suppression and be in resistance and be in like
Protestants
in the victimhood of it. Or this is why there's that saying, life is happening for you, not to you. When we are able to lean into it, even when it feels hard, and realize that there is that we're here to go through something that is going to offer us, even grieving, as hard as grieving is, grieving can offer us the antithesis of the expansion of the heart and joy, and grieving is love. Grieving is the deepest, hardest expression of love when we lose someone. And so I think that it's both. It's both that there is a journey that we're on, that we're each individually have got aspects of that journey that we are being invited to all the time. And then we also have the potential to be these expansive, and maybe, we're part of a time where we're going back into that, there's the what do they call it, the Kali Yuga, where it's like the descent. And now we have the opportunity to be part of the
beginning of the rising.
The beginning of the rising or the death. And I think we're currently still going through the death.
And that has to take, let's be realistic, all of that has to take many centuries, I think. That whole process, the yugas are thousands of years, right?
Yes.
So that, the process has to imagine me. So I don't have this pipe dream that all of mankind, everyone's going to wake up, it's all going to be great. Because I already know that, like, opening the doors of Shawshank prison and saying, it's all been a lie. But also, that doesn't help. Also, that's the first part. The second, that's the outside part. The second part is, like, it doesn't do, like, the inner work. It doesn't, we have, there is this, for most of us, maybe not everybody, but for most of us, there is this journey that maybe it's an ongoing journey, so none of us is ever going to say, I've done it, I've got to the finish line now. But the point really is more like, I see how hard it is for us in the truth community to Andrea uses the term blind spots quite a lot, to identify that blind spot. And
that's, when I say that with compassion, because we all have it. It's not a you, it's an us thing.
Yeah, we all have. Of course, we all do. We all do. Of course, we do. You've spoken to me about my blind spots, which is why I know the term. And so I think that is what I see as the imperative. It's like there's only so far that Tartaria research can take us. There's only so far that flat Earth research can take us. Really, I mean, most of us wouldn't have cared a jot back in 10, 15 years ago if science had found some new kind of thing at 1 million miles away or whatever. Okay, whatever. You know, and the same is true with the science today. I mean, of course, we're fascinated to kind of better understand the nature of the world, but if we get lost in science nerdity, then we will not do the work. We can't tie our own shoelaces. We know exactly how many inches but we don't know how to tie our own shoelaces and to take care of our own stuff, and
Can I just talk about the flat earth thing? Because for me,
don't mention flat earth. I thought that was a trigger word.
What that outside is showing me is, for me personally, the way I see it is
cosmology or something.
The cosmology.
That's it.
The globe is limitation. It's the solid, this is it. And once the time's up on that, then you're just stuffed, basically. So that's limitation. And there's a whole element of survival wrapped up in that, in that theory and narrative. For me, when we go to flat earth, and of course the word flat earth is very misconstrued and then has been weaponized. But if we go to electromagnetic earth, or we go to energetic, or we go to torus field, then for me, that is that same potential, that same possibility, that same expansiveness that I know that I am. If I'm in the narrative or the belief system of this is all I can have, that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worthy, that I don't want to be seen, then that's the limitation. I'm in a box. I'm in a whole lot of boxes of, this is all I am and this is all I can have. And the moment I'm able to heal that and bring those things to wholeness and detach from those belief systems, then it allows the possibility of so many things that I don't now want to go, okay, now I need to put myself in a new box. And often this is what we do is like, okay, and I'm not a globe and I'm a flat earther. So it's like, no, can it rather be, these are the things I know I'm not, but I'm going to allow the possibility of a whole lot of things to come in.
And you know what? None of them should be of fear. Like, we should not operate from fear. I had a few people contact me and say, oh, I think this person who was at the guru gathering might be a shill, or that person, are you sure about them, kind of thing. And it's like, fear is controlling your existence, like you might just as well be like in the, just going along with Fauci and stuff. Oh, Fauci said I need to put 5 nappies on my face.
Well, can you rather see it this way, that if we see all relationships as mirrors, rather than something that someone has to give us or can take away from us, that we see them as mirrors, and that if we are feeling that someone else is someone we can't trust, it's like, can I reflect on my own feeling of being betrayed or whatever it is? It doesn't mean you don't then still set a boundary for yourself.
Absolutely.
I think that when you can trust your own intuition,
If
really
you feel
this comes
like,
down to trust,
if you feel like, a person is like, not that way inclined vibrationally, then you put a boundary up. But one thing we should be walking towards is like this armor of God kind of idea, where it should not matter what energies kind of try and think. You're on your own path. You're your own master, and no one can mislead you. No one should be like, oh well, believe this and this is going to save your shit. No. It's, or if you do this, then this is going to say, no. It's like what's going on inside here is going to be what makes you powerful against an agent or misinformation or whatever.
But you can trust yourself, and then no matter what happens, that you've got you. But there is something much bigger that's got you.
Yeah, we had this great conversation. We were sitting on the balcony with Martin, Cheryl, and Alex, Michael, France, Luke, and we were talking about what were we talking about? We were talking about oh my gosh, I've lost my thread.
Well, that you don't have to feel. You're talking about the part where you don't have to feel like you're part of a tribe. Is that the part you're talking about? No.
No.
Oh, that you already are it.
Yeah.
That
No,
you already are it.
Well,
so,
yeah, and then when you leave here, when you leave this existence, you go back to this kind of loving,
but
totality.
you already are.
Well, yeah.
That's no, but
well,
we don't
you
believe
switch
that.
back to it because we've lost sight of that here.
No, but that's only because we think we've got to survive this. We think we are separate.
Yeah, and that it's
we're
shit.
on our own.
And we don't want to come back.
We have to just make it through this. And in fact, we don't even want to come back to this
Yeah.
because it's so.
Yeah, it's so
well,
awful.
That's part of the lie.
Yeah.
That this can be heaven or hell, and actually that
Yeah.
this is a benevolent realm actually, and that when we are able to untangle all that limitation and survival, and it's a process and it's a journey and it's ever deepening.
It's here for your learning and growth. Surely that's it. You don't have
But
to
we
take that
really
advice,
are.
but it's here for that.
You sent me a video this morning and said
Alan
you
Watts.
don't need to fix you. Well, of course you don't. You already are whole. You already are love. It's only your mind that tells you that you're not.
Division is in the mind, right?
And so when we return to love, we're actually already it. It's just our ego or our mind or is telling us that we're not. And, for me, that's freedom. Freedom is when I am returning or reconnecting actually to trusting life, to trusting myself, to trusting life, that everything is already working out for me. Even when I've gone through tough times, even when I've had to walk through something that's felt incredibly difficult, it's even then life is already working out for me. How many times we can look back at situations where it's felt tough, and if we're really willing to reflect and go, what was actually being shown there? I can honestly say, as tough as they were, there were opportunities for me to see how I still had, and this is even recently, where I still have things, stories, beliefs, things in my field that are still telling me that the worst case scenario is going to happen, not the best case scenario. And we see this even with all these things happening in the world. It's like, what are they teaching us? What are they showing us? And how are we reacting to them rather than responding to them? And that is our mission.
Yeah, you've been given a costume and a day at the theater, and you're playing a role. How are you going to play that role, You're going to be like in the corner, scowling, or you're going to be thriving and, loving this experience. Obviously, I'm very aware and acutely aware of the horrors that happen in the world. I watched a video last night about a guy, he unalives his wife. No, sorry. A guy unalives this woman, and the 3-year-old boy sees it. And then the police, they screw it all up, and they accuse the husband, and he does of a life sentence. He does about 25 years before eventually the DNA thing is, cleared him and found out who it was and blah, blah, blah. And, whole miscarriage of justice. The DA knew that they were putting the man away for a crime he never committed, Andy Dufresne. Made me weep for his loss of, 1, his wife, and 2, his son, because his son, who was 3 years old, who had said to his granny, she'd asked him on the day or the day after, said, what do you remember? And she tells about a monster being in the house. And then the granny says, where was Daddy? Daddy not there, just me and Mommy. And this monster. And I wept. There is extreme darkness in the world. There is extreme darkness, and I believe that we have our own to carry, and to
alchemize.
attend, to balance. harmonize. So I'm not, I'm never unaware or not, I know that there are all sorts of things, and the analog ID thing is just another kind of plank in the story.
And the last 5 years of what happened to people by decisions they made from a health perspective.
And so from a human perspective, all the people that have gone,
even what's going on in the world,
injured.
In many places in the world, because I don't want to focus on one thing. There's many atrocities and many bad things happening. So it's not for a second to detach or disassociate from that at all. Actually, I think quite the opposite. I think that we are loving beings. That is our true nature, and so our true nature is to want the harmony and the balance, which is so interesting because the sun is in Libra, which is all about having harmony and balance. But we have to be mindful that we don't create that harmony and balance at the expense of our own sovereignty and boundaries. So it's finding that balance between our individual sovereignty, our independence, our wholeness, our sovereignty, and then our interdependence on each other, or our connection with each other. And of course it is, there are ways that we will all try and bring balance to our own lives, and then therefore our communities and our culture and our country and our fellow human beings. I think it's part of our nature to want to be of service and to love and to to heal, to bring things into balance.
Yes. I think this is our purpose. And you know what? Each of us can do it in our own way, in our own place, in our own time. So, there isn't like, oh, this is how it needs to look. But actually, when the inner music box is playing such a symphony that those around you can feel the warmth of that music, then, that's kind of like the way that you can navigate whatever is coming your way. And in the pre-scripted, meta narrative that's going on out there.
How are we most effective firstly for ourselves, and then for our family and our community and the larger collective is when we are, the most whole, the most sovereign. And once again, when I say love, I'm not for a second saying love and light. Sometimes love means boundaries, sometimes it means being fierce, sometimes it means protecting, sometimes it means saying no, sometimes it means having uncomfortable conversations, sometimes it means expressing yourself. And just to be real right here, I'm still unlearning and healing and learning and seeing how all the ways that I am not in that alignment, because it's a journey.
It sure is. The love of God, your armor. I mean, love of God, like, what if we are God? And I mean that obviously not in the whole, but in the fractal, we are God and you are God and this is God, but
an expression of.
Yeah, and so the love of God in that context would mean the love of self in the most, balanced way, not like ours in front of the mirror kind of love.
I say, love yourself like in the biggest way.
Well, yeah.
It's
Okay,
like
maybe some time in front of the mirror if you like.
we're told to feel so small and shameful and don't be seen. You know, it's what we've learned to be safe is to be the smallest version of ourselves. That's safety. You know, don't be seen, don't be too much, don't want too much, don't expect too much, don't, you know, all those things. That's what we've learned is the safest thing for us. Well, I'm saying that there is more, and that you know, breaking through those barriers or those limitations is what expands us, is what we emanate, is love. Love is expansive. Love is big, and
Cool. Well,
know, I
I'm
think
going to give some love now.
Okay.
Expansive and big. I'm going to pick up on F333 man who says Mercury is a cleanser to purify the soul, which feels like a break in communication. Mercury is actually very interesting. You know, like we used to play with it when we were children. We'd have a little bit in a canister and we'd play around with it. I have it on my shelf. Never bothered about that. Nowadays, they don't like you touching it. But some people say, I think it was maybe Steve, the musician, Falconer, talking about it. But what I wanted to pick up on was he still wants to do a coffee enema. How long, and do you poop it out afterwards? Sorry, I have no clue. Okay, so I was telling the story the other day, so it's fresh in my mind because I hadn't thought about it for a while. But in 2017, I realized, because I was like,
those weren't coffee enemas, though.
well, they weren't coffee. It doesn't matter.
That's different.
Yeah.
No, it is
well,
different.
I'll get to that. Do you mind? So I start the journey in 2017, and I start just kind of enemaing myself with, like tap water. I don't recommend it now, but I did that for like 9 months. And I might have used some urine as well, like urine enema. But that's also pretty, like hardcore. But I started, it was like sweaty time, oh my gosh, I'm sticking like a little pipette, in the back door there. And that for a bloke, even my croaky, for a bloke is obviously a bit, even talking about it now, is it the fire or am I talking about enema? But anyway,
start to sweat.
I mean, when I first heard about enema many years ago, I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's nuts. But now I highly recommend it, and I was really like hammering it on with Flat Earth British the other day, mate. So when it comes to the coffee enema, you want to get organic green coffee. You can source that online, and ideally you'll boil it down in some distilled water, and once it's at body temperature, you'd strain it, and it would go into like one of those, like a bag, which would be like a hot water bottle kind of bag, or
you
whatever.
do get a bucket
types.
too.
Different kinds of kits you can buy online, right, with a pipe, and then you got to. Obviously, we know this, that you have to raise the body of water up to create pressure. And then you got to lie on your side, on your right side.
Mm-hmm. The other side of your liver. Yeah,
the other side of your liver, so that the coffee, when it trickles in, sort of surrounds the liver area, which causes a glutathione release. And that glutathione is like a detox or an antioxidant, right?
It's your super antioxidant of your body.
Yeah, so that helps like cause a release of stuff. But more, I mean, which for me, the coffee enema and the specific part of the glutathione release, that kind of came later down the story. But before I got to that, I came to the conclusion that our pipe work, 30, 40, 50 years in the works, over time it builds up mucoid plaque and material, and you got drunk a few times and we were dehydrated and things dried out a little bit on the pipe, on the walls of the pipe, and the pipes have gotten a little bit wider because of that, but the walls of the pipe are surrounded by matter. And it could be in the kilograms, a few kilograms, certainly 3, 4, 5 pounds, possibly more in a bigger belly. Because, a lot of gut stuff is really just because the pipe, instead of being this narrow, is now like super wide. People are thinking, oh, he's making sixes. So you know, the it has to be done gently. You allow 15 minutes or so for the liquid to drain in and to be kind of maintained in the pipe work, and to sloshy a little bit around in there, and it gets uncomfortable. It can be like a little cramping. You're like, oh, you gotta have to hang on to that for a little while, and then you have no choice but to release it. It'll want to come out like, you know, Vesuvius. And you know, what I discovered in 2017 was that I was carrying a significant amount of material that my body was having to process all the time. It was having to keep me healthy by managing and containing that. I'm sure there's stuff in there now that I would love to, you know, and of course we're on the road and we don't have our enema kit with us, but you know, once we get back to England, it'll certainly be something that we will do occasionally, you know. I think if you're just getting into it, then, you know, you could probably do it quite frequently for a number of months, and, you know, to kind of clear the pipe work. I couldn't recommend it highly enough. I do think that we age faster when we're carrying so much. Honestly, you know, that first 9 months, I would come out of the shower or bathroom and go, my goodness, there was just more and more, you know, and it was like, you know, it's like you think, oh, is the body make? But I was still going, and, you know, having Donald Trump in a normal way, you know, sitting down on the throne and seeing Donald's face, and then I'd go and do an enema thingy, and then wow, you know. So yeah, I do think that it helps one's health. So it's really worthwhile. And if we are these kind of vibratory temples of God, then I think, you know, it's not to be purist. I don't think that any, you know, one is expected to be in some kind of like purist thing. That's maybe a little bit too much of the yin, you know, or the opposite. But at the same time, we should be encouraged to take care of the temple, because, you know, the longer we can take care of it, the more healthy, enjoyable experience we have here, and the less likely we are to have to knock on the door of Mr. Fauci or whoever, whatever, Cretin. No, I mean, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I don't want to talk smack about the medical industry or elements of it, you know, because it certainly has done some can do some amazing
I don't
things.
think we have to do that. It's not one or the other.
But one, you know, in the main, you know, food be thy medicine, and if you can detox stuff. Actually, Martin was doing some stuff with Cheryl. He took some activated charcoal, you know, I think all the razzmatazz and the sunshine and so on, you know.
Can I just add to the coffee enema thing? I think to remember that your liver is one of your major detox organs, and often the liver is, for most of us, our liver is stagnant because it's having to be overworked when it comes to detoxing for many reasons, whether that be our lifestyle, whether that be we're all holding on to anger, because liver is where our anger sits. And so it's our major detox organ. So the coffee enema will help stimulate the liver and stimulate this antioxidant, which is called glutathione, which your body makes anyway, but if it's stagnant, it's not really producing it in the way that it would normally. And then obviously you know, when we are pooing, or that is also a detox pathway. So we want to make sure that area is actually, it's a really important detox pathway, one of our major detox pathways.
Yeah.
And if you're not able to pass regularly, then that of course will mean that you're not able to get rid of toxins. And not only toxins, actually any excess, in particular with women, you know, we have to be able to reproduce hormones, and then when we don't need hormones, they need to be detoxed out, and we have pathways for that. And if that's not working, then all the body does is reabsorb the toxins, which is then I think what happens when we start to become unwell. And when I say toxins, I mean everything from emotions to trauma to food to chemicals to metals.
I wonder if Jason Disbury's done it. Actually, I haven't asked him. He got away from Spain before we got talking about it.
There is a doctor that says coffee shouldn't go in your mouth, it should only go in your bottom.
There you go. Hey, Gypsy. How are you doing? Oh, I see Dean's there as well. Nice to see you guys. Hope all is good. And Squirrel Sniper. Squirrel Sniper, I saw your handiwork with that carved axe. Very handy, my friend. Nice that you have a little bit of time to do some of that stuff too. It's really good for the soul, right?
Being creative, right? That's what we all need to do a little bit more of.
I'm looking forward to doing that. We're really looking forward to, the Christmas, going back to some of the cooler weather and so on. And we're excited to be involved in planning next year's Guru Gathering. We'd very much like to offer some things other than that in the next 12 months. I spoke before about maybe doing something in the springtime in England. We'll be talking to friends and contacts about that. And yeah, other things, but one of the things that I really am hopeful that I'm able to secure in the months ahead is some hard graft, physical hard graft. I rely on it for part of my sort of well-being.
Yes, but I think if you're in the northern hemisphere, we're going to move into that time where actually we're needing the energy to go into the waters, and I also think we're in a really important time in terms of that inner work, that's ongoing. But winter in the northern hemisphere, we're supposed to, shorter days. We're supposed to sleep more. We're supposed to replenish ourselves from, and digest everything that's gone in the year before, and sort of renew that energy in our kidneys where the chi comes from, and so that we're then ready in the spring for it to burst up through expression, and then in the summer we're able to be expansive in the fire. And if we don't take that time in the winter, Dave was saying this to Alex the other day, he thinks that Christmas is actually that time where we're supposed to, those 3 days, we're actually at the deepest moment, and we're supposed to be the stillest and the quiet, and yet it's Christmas and everybody's got bright lights and partying and eating too much and drinking too much, and it's not about not doing any of those things, of course not, but it's the counter.
Not that I'm suggesting such extensive kind of alterations, but it does it does make one think, should that be the time of quiet contemplation, stillness, hibernation. I'm not saying without food necessarily. But
no, actually, it's at that time you should be having the sort of deeper, denser, darker foods, because you want that nourishment
the red
for the
foods
kidneys.
like meat.
Well,
or beetroot if you can't eat meat.
There's certainly in the Taoism or the Chinese medicine theories that if you don't take that time to replenish and digest and do all that nourishment and rest and renewal and all that, that we end up sort of wasting our life energy on
Chi.
Well, not wasting it. We don't give ourselves a chance to let it renew itself and replenish itself.
Well, actually, Tim Foster's comment plays right into that. He says, cold, frost, rain, mud, and poo are all negative, but they all together produce tall trees and food for us all. Use the negatives and learn from them. But it's more like what's happening there, I think, Tim, is like that, and that's what often, the fall time, autumn, the leaves are turning brown, apparently because the energy is being brought back into the tree itself. The rest of the leaf is going to fall to the ground, and that will become the mulch, along with the poo of the animals and other things, that will nourish that tree. And the same, okay, obviously not the poo, But the same is, like what we're meant to be doing at that time. And then come the springtime and the summertime and, and the guru gathering or the gathering.
Well,
this is a time for...
Well, that's why when it's April, right? It's April is Aries, which is the initiator. It's like, okay, we're ready for that energy to move forward.
The rain.
And in the winter, it's more that, even though it's Capricorn, Capricorn is more like, let's get all the foundational stuff done. Is the Capricorn. I think that we're supposed to, I think what he was alluding to is polarity, right? We need polarity. We need the dark and the light. We need the contrast. You can't have one without the other. You need the grief and the joy. And some will say, oh, no, that's not the case. I truly believe it is. I would not be healing and expanding and...
Do we not do most of our growing at night? The thing is, like, when you're in that rest stage, that's when you grow. So, maybe that's what we should be doing, is being in a rest stage at the night of the year, which is obviously circa the 22nd or 3rd or whatever.
Well, the winter is the time of death, right? You see that in nature. I mean, nature is our best teacher. Nature knows that it needs to, in the winter, everything dies off and all that energy is pulled in and resourced. And it has no problem with letting things die. Us humans, we have so difficult with letting go.
Well, what did we watch eating something today? Something ate something. Something ate something. We were out in the forest. Something ate something.
Oh, yes.
And you were like, oh, well, maybe you said, Zizi, if we stopped eating meat, then they'd stop eating meat. Was it a bird?
Oh, no, it was a bird we found the remains of a bird. The bird had been, the feathers had been left behind. Predator. And that's what happens in nature.
And we make this joke because Bro Sanchez always says, because he's a vegan, he always says that if mankind didn't eat meat, then the animals wouldn't eat meat either, which is quite a fanciful concept in my mind. It is the nature of this thing here. It's actually, we're so fixated on this, animal, but it's energy. So is the plant.
I think it's
and
more
they
the fear of
they both feel that way. And as I said to Alex the other day, I think that, morally, I would much rather eat a sheep that was towards the end of its life than a lamb that was brand new.
But I think it's our fear of death, and I think it's our instinct to want to survive. So I'm not, it's not about like us. But it is part of the process. It's happening on the micro. Even in our own bodies, you want cell die-off. In fact, that's what fasting is. When you fast, you allow the cell die-off to happen naturally. So it's from the micro to the macro, and we see that in the bigger cycles, in this realm, is that we may not experience it in its totality because we're not around for that length of time, but there is the whole process that goes on, and it's just how nature works. But yet we're in such resistance of it because we have, the letting go or change or death.
No, but for me it's a painful program. No, but it's a program running, because if you went into the jungles of the world where there's never been, people preaching about, climate change, and, you guys are eating too much meat and all this, and how dare you? How dare you? Oh, she's been in the news a bit, isn't she? Because she's been out in the Far East. Well, not Far East, closer than the Far East, somewhere towards the middle. Not really. But anyway, so, if you went to the jungle people and said, what's the deal, they'll be like, come, let's go and get some food. And they've got the bow and arrow, and they'll go and find themselves a buck, and then they're going to feast, right? And they'll eat all of that buck for 2 days. And then they probably won't eat meat for a while, and they'll be, scavenging berries and maybe a bit of honey here and there. But if they could, then they would go, okay, let's, there's another one. Let's go and, in a few days' time, we'll go and find another one. We got lucky and we came home with 2, and we're going to really feast. You know, and that's how they need to survive. But because we can get everything from Holland and Barrett and the health food stores, and we get all these supplements flown in from all over the world and crushed up by machines and blah blah blah, then of course people can go, well, you know, I don't need that stuff. I can obviously eat out of a packet. You know, there's no need to go and hunt any of that stuff. And how dare you kill such a thing? Because, you know, I can get all my food from...
I do think it's a lot of the time it's us projecting our own human experience of what death and loss and harm is, and we project it onto nature. But yet nature will show us how there's this cycle.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't...
Nature shows us, right? Because if we are God, we created this environment. We created the cows so that they would give us milk and leather and, you know, sheep wool and blah, 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 food. Very tasty.
Well, that's why that...
Nourishment, by the way, and we know from, you know, accounts of people who've gone years without animal fat, how when they start taking animal fat, their health turns a corner. You know, I know people will say, and, you know, Jason's proudly one of them, who will say, you know, my diet prior to going off meat was pretty rancid. So I had a load of health problems. And when I cut out the meat, those health problems went away. And I think, you know, it's well, meat, dairy, blah, 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 all those sorts of things. I think it's a complex thing, you know, our health, but it is for what it's worth, and I shouldn't bang on so much about it because everyone can do their own thing. But I do feel like it is one of those things that has been, like the other narratives, surprise, surprise, has been implanted, even in music, in, you know, in medicine, whatever, in all these areas, you know, things are implanted such that good people propagate bollocks, absolute bollocks, you know, because as I say, you know, I spent a year in a super, you know, like backwater part of the world, you know, semi-arid, the oldest desert in the world, the Kalahari Desert. I spent a year there, and I had to go out and talk to local tribal people, you know, who were like Ovambo tribal people who'd been rarely interfered with over the last hundreds of years. And with an interpreter, I would go and talk to these people, and I know that their kind of outlook on life was very much about these things: the animals, the sheep, the goats, they're all here to provide something for us. They're our wealth, you know. We use them sparingly, we use them carefully,
with reverence.
Mm-hmm. But they are an essential part of our survival plan, and have been for hundreds of years. And we will still obviously go out and hunt stuff, and but it is primarily, you know, how. So there's simply, I saw this kind of at first hand, you know, how these people need to exist. And so some of the things that we've done, you know, even with medicine, we're like, oh well, we can't, you know, allow the body to heal itself. We have to put this thing in. Well, the same is true with.
But can we be fair that probably the Western lifestyle is quite gluttonous?
Definitely.
You know, we are so entitled, or we're never really hungry. We also have this programmed, I need to breakfast, lunch and dinner. We are able to go to a supermarket and purchase something without even knowing where it's been, how it got there, and you know, we're not aware of the process. I'm not.
We can't bash ourselves for that, because
I'm not digging anyone out here. I'm not digging anyone out at all. For me, I totally respect that if you are making choices, conscious choices for your body, dependent on what you feel it needs, then you do you. And I respect you for that. What I would like to add is I may have said this before, but I'll say it again. There is on Instagram a page called Sovereignty Ranch. The lady's name is Molly. She's also got her own separate. She's just written a book called Farming Debunked. And she comes right from the vegan lifestyle. She even ran a vegan restaurant, which is now a meat restaurant. And she will show you, I had a chat with Mike Stellium 7 about this because he's actually been in her company and had a lengthy conversation with her. How the truth is that, for us to have rich soil to grow our vegetables in, we require that to have animal product in it.
Bang.
And that's often because, if we were let in the wild, the animals would die. They would then be absorbed into the soil, and that's how the life cycle goes on. In fact, he even tells the story about there's a berry bush.
It's the
blackberry bush that has the
you didn't tell the story last week?
The thorns. No. Did I tell this last week?
I think you told the story.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is...
last week was insane. Okay, carry on.
The whole 3 weeks has been insane. I don't know who I've spoken to because I've spoken to many people.
We had Stellium, we had Alex, Martin.
Do you know that feels like 2 months ago?
I know. But that was only last Friday.
I know.
And we had 3 well-known faces of our community come on our channel on this thing live. In the studio, as it were.
In the studio.
Yeah. How many people can say, how many guests have you had in the studio at one time? I mean, you can't really bring them all together these days because everyone's spread all around the old plane. But we were like a magnet in Javier.
Name dropping now.
No, how can I be name dropping? The people who are watching here saw last week.
That was a joke.
And if you didn't catch that, then go back and have a look because it was good fun. Was that Martin's birthday thing?
Yes.
Was it? That was?
Yes, 58.
No way. That was only last Friday.
That was only last Friday, yes. Honestly, I don't know if anybody's experiencing this, but time feels like it moves super quick, but it's so full. And I know maybe that's just, maybe it's the summertime, but it just, life is full. Or certainly my experience of that, it's full and it's exciting and there's so much to look forward to, even though I don't necessarily have any clarity on anything, but I'm really, really just, it feels good. That doesn't mean I don't have to be in flow of some uncomfortable experiences that present themselves, but on the whole, life feels super exciting, but super quick. That's why when we say it was only last Friday, it's like, time seems to be moving, and that can be an energetic thing as well, because when we've got a lot of Aquarian energy and Gemini energy, which is air, that can tend to be much faster.
Well, things are moving fast, and certainly if you look at the story in the outside, like newspaper world, then things are moving at such a pace, and it's quite, dare I say it, notwithstanding what we were saying earlier on about, not wanting, horrors to be wrought on anyone, but it's quite exciting because it really is like, it's a narrative, that's a story that has been written, and I can't change that. I can't change that. I can only change this. This is the technology that I can adapt, and I know that, it's kind of like I'm the kind of guy who doesn't really like to study for a test up until the day before the test or whatever, So here I am late in the day. I'm coming late in the day to the party of sorting your shit out, getting your stuff in, and I've still got a long way to go, but I'm joyous in the knowledge that there is a kind of there is a purpose to it. There is a reason for you to sort out to come into harmony. There is a reason for it, and it is all to your own benefit. I don't know that it necessarily has to benefit. It will. I don't know that it has to benefit the whole or the greater or those. It will though. But it is your thing to fix, to come into that, come into that harmony, that balance, that neutral place, that,
I think it's wholeness. It's coming into wholeness is like that. It's that sense of peace, or rather than feeling like it has to be like that all the time, can I be, like the sine wave, can I be in flow rather than resistance trying to stop or fix or change? Can I allow the flow of that? It's even like that experience of grief. Can I even walk through that uncomfortableness and know that it's part of the process? Obviously we don't want people to feel sad. It's like part of our programming. It's like, don't feel the bad feelings or what we've deemed as bad. But they're part of the polarity, right? They're part of the experience.
And we're all going to have bad days or bad moments. But, the more we practice this balance, this harmony, then I think the easier, the quicker that, you can return to that,
I think that it's all about our hearts, and even the grief is about like cracking it open. Even feeling joy is like, that's really hard. It's like the cracking it open to actually feel. I said this the other day. How many of us actually feel pure joy,
unadulterated joy,
without having to use some substance, whether it just be sugar, to promote that, or to give us that sort of sense of pure joy? How much of us can actually be in that sense of pure joy? It's a really difficult emotion to feel, probably one of the hardest ones to feel, that total pure joy.
Joy without Joe? Mushroom Joe? Surely not. Yeah, I saw Liam, a guy who I don't think he is on YouTube, but he's on Facebook. He was at the party and he does these he throws a lot of words at
AI.
Lyrics at AI, and it comes back with these songs. And he did one on Mushroom Joe, which was quite funny. Anyway, yeah, but joy. And I think I was saying that to Andrea actually about, because I still have stuff. I know that I still have stuff that I use to
enhance, promote,
assuage, temper, manage.
Good words.
Support, yeah. English is it's something I'm quite good at, actually.
He is a bit of a wordsmith.
I may not be able to sing or play the guitar, but I can come up with some words in English. In fact, oftentimes I'll listen to someone talking and I know what they're going to say next. No, I know what word they're going to say. I don't know what they're going to say next. I know what word will naturally come out of their mouth in the sentence that they're making. And not that I'm super well read. It just is one of those things that comes easy to me. But anyway, I'm off the point of that, which is self-mastery, I talk about in the streets, blah, blah, blah. But I also know that, I'm telling, I'm like down in the gym saying to people, hey, if you do these exercises, it will fit in your body up in a certain way. But I'm still myself, doing the exercises to fitten is not a word. Fitten my body up in such a way. So the same is true with the heart, and I think as a man, that for us, because girls and obviously heartbreaking and all that sort of stuff happens to girls, and shit happens with men, and they kind of it's not straightforward, right? But with men and their hearts, like we are somewhat programmed to not allow connection to heart, and to not lead from the heart, but more lead from the mind. And whatever the reason is behind that, I'm sure you understand that, and I understand that because I come from a very masculine, or culture, the South African Afrikaans, army type people and rugby type people, and men.
I think it's a generational
frying
thing
meat,
too,
cooking meat on the fire, on the barbecue, on the braai.
It's a generational thing too, because our parents come from the generation of being seen and not heard, and certainly boys, you know, it's not okay for boys to cry.
I can't imagine a time in this epoch, like in this last few hundred years, when it was ever okay for a boy to cry. You know, I think, you know, if anything, it's probably, it could be somewhat easier nowadays for a boy to cry than it was 2 or 3 generations ago. But, you know, that would obviously depend on local factors, right?
So for me, it's about the union within. So, you know, if we're still suppressing the feminine, and obviously when it comes to the masculine, their dominance is the masculine, and whether the feminine, the dominance is the feminine. But, you know, we still have both of those yin and yang archetypes within. And if there is a wound around the feminine, which more than likely stems from mother or father, if they are not healed and in completion and in balance within, both for the female and the masculine, they haven't got that inner union, then you know, we're not able to create. We're not even going to be able to create that without, because, you know, we'll always have a skewed or damaged or broken. I don't use the word broken. I hate the word broken. Like a wound around that part of ourselves, because as within, so without. So, you know, if for the masculine, you know, that feminine part that's not able to, and of course, you know, it's not about a man going the complete opposite and just becoming this, you know, this really like yin type. All he does is sit there. But, you know, and of course, I also believe that we have different emotional archetypes anyway. So some men are more connected to that sort of watery, emotional, moon type processing of emotions, and some are more masculine. But, you know, it's even anger for me. I think that a lot of the time we all carry a lot of resentment, which affects the liver, believe it or not. And then we wonder why we've all got liver stagnancy. But, you know, and resentment is because something happened to us where, you know, essentially our hearts break. And there's so much grief there, or we lose something in those early years. And even if it's ourselves, you know, lose part of ourselves. And so there's grief there, and resentment is like the protection of that. And we want someone to pay for it. And, you know, even being able to feel those feelings so that we can then tap into those deeper feelings. But I think men, you're right, men are, it's the programming is to, you know, men don't feel anything, mustn't feel anything.
Yeah, and we got, you know, my view is that we have been weaponized against ourselves, because we are God and we have no idea of it. We are love, and we are at war with each other and ourselves. And, you know, yes, as Andrea says, the ripples from whether it's previous lives and or the, you know, the experience of our own life has curated a less than joyous perspective on things. And then, of course, when you realize that the world that you were given is a complete fabrication, the people that are in places of authority and are holding sway and people bow to and fate, they are, you know, of the same thing. The family and friends that you have are still mostly in its thrall. It can be a very depressing and upsetting, it's no doubt, it can be an upsetting and anger, rage in you know, thing. And like you were saying earlier about grief, I think rage and all of these things are important stepping stones and tools and useful, you know. So it's not to say that because I want to learn to lead from the heart more than from the head. That doesn't mean that, there wouldn't come a time where, some righteous rage might be necessary.
I think rage is absolutely
But
necessary. Sometimes we need a
yeah,
boundary, right? Rage and anger are expressions, and they're often necessary. If someone's crossed your boundaries, you need to use that to say no. Now, of course, if you've never had the opportunity to have a no as a child, which, let's be honest, in many situations, I mean, just school alone, your no was not allowed, then that's unexpressed rage, that's unexpressed anger. That's like, no, I get to have autonomy and say no. And when we don't have that, then it doesn't just like float
no.
away.
No, but that's rage in context, right? When you've got just systemic rage or systemic thing,
But that's because the boundaries have been crossed.
Well,
systemic rage is because boundaries have been crossed.
That needs to be assuaged, right? That needs to be harmonized.
Totally. That's why, and it needs to. And you know what? My mentor once said, we in society we should have rage rooms. Rage should be way more acceptable. Same as grief. All these emotions should be way more acceptable. And we were never shown, and our parents were never shown how to have a healthy expression of an emotion. We just aren't shown. So, it's completely understandable that we don't know how, and that we need to learn how to have those emotions. But they're just an energy that wants motion. And as a consequence of an experience we've had, we also have given all those emotions so much meaning, right? Sadness, it means this, and anger means this, and we've given our emotions meaning. So we already are in resistance and trying to manage and control instead of being in flow of them. And as a society, but I just wanted to say something interesting that I saw today around, and it's something I'm going to explore a little bit more. It's really interesting to me, but around the field, and that we are a field. And I saw something today where it said, our thoughts are not in our head, in our mind, like we think here. They're in a field. And that also, that if we're in a field and we are then all individually in our own field, but then connected to a greater field, then all that rage and anger and is in the bigger field. So, and we're all experiencing that. So when we say, we see this terrible world out there, what we must realize is that we're all contributing to a collective field, individually and then collectively. And when we are hating on someone or judging someone or whatever, we're adding that to the field.
We are, and maybe we need to be a little bit. That's more important than what we worry about, the Greta Thunberg climate change stuff, right? But it's interesting. While you were saying that, I was thoughtful of, we've had the fortune of talking to lots of different people over the last few years who are unaware of what's going on in the world. I don't mean during street activism. And sometimes you'll come across this family and they'll go, wow, COVID was the greatest time for us. We as a family, we had this land that we could spread our legs on, and we all got together, and we were all sort of required really to spend a few months together, something we never thought we would have the time to do, blah, 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 blah. And so what an amazing time it was. We just had such a hoot. Whilst at the same time, other people are shivering in their thing. I mean, obviously for me, it's a dichotomy to have people go, oh, what a wonderful time it was. And, that it was a massive, psyop on people, and a lot of people got harmed psychologically as well as physically. So it's, it's a little hard to hear in a way, but it is interesting because these people have no idea. Perhaps they're in the field of, we've got this frightening thing. Let's stay in the garden, the 5 of us, we'll just hang out together and wash everything that comes from the shop. they're still in that kind of field. So, because I did feel like there was a strange energy about during that time. But, again, is that psychosis? Is that me? Or is that because the field was so altered?
Totally. I think so. Another thing that that has been brought to my attention is that the Pluto energy is a collective energy, and Pluto is death and rebirth, and Pluto is what's hidden. It's like what's hidden, the darkness that's hidden, that is meaning we're not in our fullest power. We're not in our fullest expression. But the Pluto effect is there is a trauma. Well, it's used as to create collective trauma, and we are currently moving through some big collective trauma that is being put upon humanity. Now, it's hard to say this without undermining people's real suffering and incredibly difficult situations. But through that trauma is the opportunity to awaken to who we truly are. But we have to have that awareness that it's happening. It's almost like the atrocities that are happening, can they be for the upliftment? And I know in the moment it doesn't feel like that at all. And I really even struggle having this conversation.
Well, it's a little bit like slaughtering the sheep so that your health can be uplifted.
But I wanted us to be really mindful. Like Dave was saying earlier, and I wanted to say about the things that are going on in the world. It's not about being disassociated from them, because you want to take them as opportunities to see what's still living you through the mirror of them. But at the same time, through that experience, it's about being able to see a lot of these narratives as belief systems, rather than or stories or even manipulation, rather than that you need to attach them. And if you are attached to them and you are triggered and you are feeling something, it's a real opportunity to be curious about that. And so I wanted to highlight one of those Pluto moments that I think is currently happening, and that is around a certain current affair that is very prominent in the news, which has deeply affected most people in the world, and has been incredibly hard for a lot of people to witness and feel helpless about. And we know that the powers that, as Peggy Hall says, should not be, the powers that should not be are followers of the energies, the cosmic energies. And we've had Pluto in retrograde in Aquarius. Aquarius is that energy of I'm unique, I'm my own person, but I'm also connected. So both, I'm individual and I'm part of the community. But it's also technology, it's also information, it's also humanitarian, it's truth, it's freedom. So there's a lot of things going on around that archetype anyway, but in particular this weekend, a very big current affair that's in the news, very big story. And Pluto has been in retrograde, I think, for around 5 months. I haven't got the dates correct, but it's due to go direct on Monday. And this current affair the dates match. And of course, when Pluto goes direct, its energy is amplified. So that is, again, death and rebirth, trauma, what's hidden is being shown, darkness is being shown. So I say that with the invitation for us to all be reflective on how that is being seen on the outside, but then also the invitation to see how that is reflected back into us, and how, what is that bringing up for us? What is that? Does it bring up trauma? Does it bring up something that's been hidden? And of course, we've got a lot of Scorpion energy as well, which is also going to help with that, because Pluto rules Scorpio.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. I think, I mean, you've talked before about this star alignments that have come around again since the last time it did, which was Pearl Harbor attack.
Well, we had the first little
entry of it.
Entry of that.
And
it's got to reach a peak next year.
In 6 months' time. So the noise in the theatre is going to get louder. And, what has to happen in the heart is to get stiller, I think. And really, I mean, wow, we are... I've become more and more like sure of this, and hopefully it's not cult talk, but I really think that we are the expression of the all that is, whatever that is, God, whatever you want to call it. We are that, and we are the creator here, and we are the designers here, and we should have, we should really have that knowing inside us, such that we operate, because it is hard to operate in the system other than the way that we've been programmed. But this is where we have to deprogram ourselves. And that's not, I'm not thinking, I have to be like angry with the status quo and the operatives that, foment it. It is what it is. And it has to play out the way that it's playing out, And I don't think millions of people in any country standing up to what's going on are going to have any long-lasting dragging effect on the progress of this. I don't think we stopped the lockdowns early. I don't think flat earthers, it's been, all of this stuff has been controlled. And that's okay, like you've gone to, a highly complicated movie that you're watching, and it's like there's lots of plot lines, there's a lot of different elements to it, and it's so hard to follow sometimes, but you wanted that. We are people that have been gifted something in this, ability to see through some of the deceptions. And so the question always is, why does it matter? Well, it matters because it edifies who we are, what we are, why we're here, what is the purpose of this existence, this day at Disneyland.
I think the outside, if I choose to allow it to reflect something back to me, it's always going to be an opportunity for me to bring me back to my true nature. So when something's happening in the outside and I'm reacting, or I'm feeling something, or I'm experiencing something, can I be curious about what that is, and is it true? Can I ask myself the question, is it true? And then from that place, then, again, it may be that I learn to have a voice and say no, where I've never said no before. Or it's a yes, or it's a taking the next step into something that's unknown, or it's trusting that things are working out, or it's pattern breaking, where you're, instead of doing that same thing that you would have done over and over again, you decide that you're going to take a brave step into something different and new, or it's done to pattern break, where you're no longer feeling like you're on your own, and that you can start to connect with someone, or that you can use your voice, or whatever it is. I think that the more that we can return to who we truly are and connect to our hearts and connect to love, and again, I don't mean, it's all love at night. I mean love as in...
The love within, there's something, I know it, I feel it sometimes. I am reconnecting with it, like when I was small, I think it was there, and then shit happened. and I know that I can get back to that. And I'm on a path to that, like an intention. It's like being, not realizing you're an alcoholic is a problem. But once you realize you're an alcoholic, then you can start to kind of, make steps in the direction of attending that. But I think, that is, and it's an ongoing thing. So it'll be something that we talk about more and more.
Totally.
But I think we've run out of time for today, unless you had something else you
Just
wanted to say.
one last thing. I think that if anybody finds themselves in panic or looping thoughts over whatever it is, whether, whatever the thing is that's a thing for you right now, is to try and ground yourself back into your body. I can't encourage you enough. We need to be back in our bodies.
Do 10 push-ups now.
Because the mind will play tricks with you. So it's for me, it's breath. Can I really have 4 deep breaths and just bring myself back into the body?
I like to do some breathing before I start a coaching session, but I think I'm going to start including some push-ups as well.
Whatever it
think
is,
that's really good
if
for us
it is,
blokes to get
or
into.
having a dance, or depending, for some people it might actually be having a bath, or just sitting in nature. Nature's a great way of grounding. Just standing on the grass, or going to the seaside, or whatever your thing is. But breath for me is that one thing that brings me back to my center and back to, to my essence.
Breather ether. The ether is carrying this thing, and we need to connect to it. I actually put some of my thoughts out on a video today. We were wandering around, found a little old ruined castle, wandering around. So go and look at that video. I do talk about that thing. Sunset Lights 100 says a vegetarian diet is good in their opinion. I can't knock that, we won't go over that. And Flat Earth Awareness. For me, the Flat Earth Awareness is like, everything else needs to have gone through the distiller of the Flat Earth, and then take your subject of knowledge and do it. But I mean, for me, when we're talking about what is the heart and what is our connection to all, then, the Flat Earth is the journey towards understanding that this is an interconnected, perhaps toroidal system in which we are a micro of the bigger egg, and everything is kind of mirrored, So just like the small Russian doll looks like the big Russian doll, well, the small you looks like the big God. In the electromagnetic egg sense, not in the man with a beard sense.
I do think though that we have to be really mindful that we don't let these truths be the thing that divides us, so that those that don't see it are therefore over there and we're over here. Because at the end of the day, we are.
I've got this beautiful friend. She is like so lovely, such a sweet heart, does charitable stuff to help orphans in Africa, lots of good work like that. What a beautiful soul. But not able to jump on the deep truth bandwagon. And that's got to be okay, that has got to be okay. Like, you hope that the complete picture emerges fully, and that's all good and good. But, we cannot be like, oh, well.
I think that's when you've got to walk the walk, walk the walk, talk the talk, right?
How many people are out doing good charitable works, kind works, loving works, or whatever, and they believe they're doing it on a ball, and they're monkeys evolved. Fair play, so. And the love thing is, by the way, the love thing is like, okay, if someone's in my face right now, I'm not going to be feeling a lot of love right now to that person. But I have to alchemize over time to kind of coming to a point of, I love that fellow segment of the creation. I don't like their shit.
Yeah.
But I can still love them.
And I've got to set a boundary, even though I can love someone, not like what they.
And their shit, and I'm going to Let their shit go. The shit that they maybe feel a certain way, they did a certain thing, whatever. They nicked something off you, they scratched your car, they, whatever, whatever. When you were young or when you were with someone, a partner, all this sort of stuff, you carry that around, that baggage around, it's only holding you under the water.
We go back to the field, right? It's there in the field. So, and you can't fake energy. This is what we cannot do. And that's going to become more and more obvious.
Unveiling.
And with the with the AI, that's like there's going to be fake and there's going to be authentic, and you can't fake authentic.
Yeah.
It's you either are or you aren't.
Yeah. CDS is excellent for detox. What is CDS? Do you know CDS? Freeman says.
CDS isn't the same as MMS then?
I'm not sure.
Maybe you can elaborate what you mean by CDS.
Maybe you can elaborate on that. I believe it removes the nanotech. One of the things is you've got to take it on belief, because it's so hard. We do obviously charcoal and other bits and pieces. Took a bit of blue ink the other day. Blue.
I think that when it comes to the nanotech or what the mRNA has done, at this point we don't completely know, and there's a lot of scaremongering around that.
But all for cleaning the pipes, yes. CDS is MMS.
Yeah.
I love to tell the MMS story that I believe I have. I may be completely wrong about this Freeman, but I think I met. What's his name? Jim Humble, the inventor the guy who popularized it. I think I met him in Egypt. Long story, and I won't go into it now, but I'm pretty sure I met him. I had an encounter with him, and he tried to offer me this thing. This is 2011 when my mother's weeks away from dying, and he tries to offer me this stuff. And I'm like, you're wasting my fucking time. My mother's dying, man. There's nothing can be done with her. She's 5 weeks away.
I've only just made that connection that actually, if your mother had maybe had the MMS, although to be honest, by that point
she was so broken up. It was at really 5 or 8 weeks, 6, 7, 8 weeks out or whatever. She no longer had really any control of any part of her body.
So we said thank you to everybody in the chat and for joining us tonight.
Yeah, we haven't had the busiest of chat rooms tonight, but
it's okay. It's okay.
I do appreciate the thumbs up. We've had a slew of thumbs ups today.
Well, that's okay. I mean, it's a very, like I said, the energy does feel quite sort of inward. That's very Scorpion. Scorpion likes to retreat.
Hi, D'Angelo. Yeah. Rulebox says it's bleach. Yeah, I mean it is. That's kind of like the, that semi-detractors kind of way of looking at MMS. But it is like not. It's a bit like pool cleaner,
really.
Yeah.
It's a bit like putting chlorine in a pool.
Yeah, it is a bit like that.
It's about it'll clean up any of. And again, all of these things. You need to do with having done research. And,
I would never tell anybody to take
having
anything
done
like that unless
research,
they've done their homework.
Yeah, and feel like it's the right thing for you. And
but the thing with it is just my application of simple logic. I mean, obviously I did quite a bit of research on it before trying it, but is that we are mostly water. I know it's all frequency, it's all vibration, but we are mostly water, and water in a stagnation, in a situation where it stagnates, gets algae, and that algae can bloom when the right conditions are created, such that we see it as something they call something like that. Anyway, so what I believe is that with some of these algae blooms, when you hit it with the pool cleaner, you get a mass die-off. And so your detox pathways need to be open such that this die-off can be allowed to leave the body and not going to another little pool and connect. It's not like
I think
doing
that's a
shit there.
really, really important thing that Dave just said. And I think that people don't realize that when you do any detox, if your detox pathway, so if you're not pooping regularly, you're not sweating, you're not even breathing correctly, and if they're not open correctly, all it does is the body will just take it back in.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that you are your detox pathways are open, and then you're using something like a clay or some binder to help pull out any of that stuff too.
Sweating, like sitting by the fire.
And then often these things should just be done as protocols, but
occasionally, yeah. And they can, they can lead to these like, other sort of events. So you do, you do need to do your research, and maybe if you can talk to a naturopath sometimes or whatever. But a lot of us fly by the seat of our pants, And actually, Freeman was giving us a little bit more science there and saying that bleach is H2O2 and ClO2 is not the same thing. So I assume that's CLD is chlorine dioxide. So yeah, there you go. So that's why taking with a binder like fulvic acid, spot on. I'll tell you the story another time, Freeman, about. I truly believe it was Jim Humble. It was only many years later that because this is 2011, and my mother's death was like my wake-up call. That was my 9/11, my 2020, whatever.
Into health and all that stuff too, right? It was because her health was compromised, and we ourselves had always relied on mainstream medicine, and then we realized mainstream medicine wasn't able to help her, and that kind of started our researching. So 2011 was a real awakening for us. It was something really tragic, really hard. But you and I both believe that actually her passing just brought so many things into our lives, and it doesn't mean it wasn't hard and uncomfortable and really, a really sad time. And, she was only 67. It just shouldn't have happened, really.
But it was a powerful thing, a boost, and it was her voice that came to me when I was so fearful at the beginning of the DMT experience.
Well, actually, there was also that conversation we had the other day about realizing that through his mother's passing and my father's passing, that death is just a part of the process, and it doesn't have to be something bad. Yes, of course. For both of us, not having that person in our life anymore has been...
You want them to stay at Disneyland the whole day, right? Get on all the rides.
And it's a loss, right? Not having that person in your life anymore is a loss. And deserves the love that you had from them, deserves the grieving. But equally, it is part of the process. And when you can be at peace with that, then the whole process is easier. Still dreadfully sad and uncomfortable.
I don't want to end on dreadfully sad and uncomfortable. My mother died. It's actually a joyous thing, I wept for 14 days. She died on the 1st of November, 2011. That's 5 ones. Talk about Gates.
Her passing was the most incredible experience for me. It really was. It was the most... the deepest and most awakening experience I have actually been through, and
she's
so
given birth.
I always, at the time when Dave's family thanked me for taking care of her, you have no idea what an honor it was, and how much that experience and what her allowing me to be there in those final hours, how incredibly special and important and empowering and just life-changing it was for me. So, it just shows you that, and of course in the moment you're not feeling like that, but when you can look back and see how, that experience, it doesn't always have to be death, but that experience was a catalyst.
Yes, and a catalyst to some amazing incredible revelations and this journey and
well, in a way, it's her
information.
legacy, right? Her legacy. She was an Aquarian, so her legacy, and she was a humanitarian and a philanthropist and an activist, and so her legacy that she passed on to Dave and therefore me through her passing has been incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
So
that's
yeah,
kind of good like that, and we know that the place on the other side is really, you're not going to be disappointed when you get there. You're like, oh, what was all the fuss about? Well, the religious guys like to scare the shit out of you because I don't know what they harvest something or something. But I have no fears of how to go to the other side and what's happening on the other side and blah blah blah. And if I come back, well, that won't be such a bad thing because I'll get to be like 25 again and 35 again, so young. And actually, I am still young, so I'm.
and actually, this life does get to be good. It can be good. Doesn't mean it hasn't got moments and times where it feels hard, but it can actually be good.
Can't enjoy the highs without the lows.
You can actually feel fulfilled and excited and expanded and joyous and and love life and trust life. We can actually have that.
Thread it through the eye of the needle, my friends. Have a fantastic week. I haven't thought about next Friday yet. Not sure exactly where we're going to be next Friday. We won't be here. We won't be in Spain. We won't be in France. We might be in France.
No, next Friday we'll be in the UK, but we'll
be
not be in a position to do a
So we may have to beg your forbearance, and we will see you the following Friday. As I said earlier, we will be at the end of the month in Bournemouth at Ian's Flat Earth Gathering. And well, I hope to see some of you in the country and other friends and new friends and friends from Spain. We'll be looking forward to seeing you again.
And I want to just extend the invitation again to anyone who feels like they have reached the point where they don't want to do this on their own anymore and they need support, or they need someone to hold space with them, or they want a reading or mentoring or a chat, or to not feel alone. Dave and I do coaching
separately and individually.
Separately, or we sort of, it's more bespoke. So we can chat and see what feels right for the individual. I encourage everyone to get their chart read, and I will do a mini reading for free, because why wouldn't you have that map in your back pocket? So just reach out for any reason. If you feel like you just want to have a friendly ear. Our links are on Dave's YouTube or on the Trinities. I think mine are on the Trinities, my links, or we've both got an Instagram account under our names. By all means, reach out. Know that when things feel hard, that there is something wanting to be shown, and if we can be courageous enough to be curious about what that is, there is like golden nuggets waiting for us.
I can't say better than that, my friends. I'm going to end the stream and